great.
3, 2, 1. Episode 591 with Kim Witczak. We're just going to continue the conversation we were just having before we start recording. We'll get to whatever we're going to talk about later, but we were talking about David Goggins, and so a little bit about myself. So Dr. Peter McCullough put me in touch with you, but I lost a sibling to suicide in 2014. I had just gotten into medical school, and my life kind of came crashing down. I was doing a bunch of drugs, got really, really fat, long hair, had to move home to my parents' house in 2016 and lived home for 5 years, which was a harrowing experience as a grown man. But I discovered Goggins like halfway through. And whenever I taught myself Photoshop, and I was trying to build like a clothing company, and that was pre-podcast. But I would just listen to him. I'd be like 2 a.m. and I'd be working on something, or even with the podcast, like, when I got permanently banned from YouTube, one of the things I listened to was just Goggins. He's just like what he said about, like, opening the door, like in like Iraq when you're breaching a house. It's like, open the door. You might get shot in the face and then it's over. But don't peek in and then be that guy that peeked in. If you're gonna open the door, open the fucking door. And so I was like, if I'm gonna get banned, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get on Peter McCullough and Dr. Malone. Like, if I'm gonna get banned, I'm gonna be a white guy in front of an American flag getting banned. Like, just open the fucking door. And his other thing, you must see you must identify what is in front of you and then eviscerate it, or you must destroy anyone and anything in front of you. And I just love that mindset of just, if it's in your way, fucking annihilate it. And for everyone listening, we were talking about foul language, and you brought up, she's like, I don't know if you've heard about David Goggins. And I was like, I fucking love David Goggins. But please introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, I'm Kim Witczak, and it's funny, I do love David Goggins, and I love his mentality. Like, I love Witczak because, it'll make sense when I tell you my story.
Sure.
But so I like to call myself an accidental advocate. I never set out to do drug safety work or any of the work that I do now. But sometimes, life chooses, life's purpose kind of chooses us, and we may not have chose it. And so I kind of look at my life and what I do and like the passions I have because of what happened to me personally. So I have spent my entire career in advertising, marketing, living like just a normal life, whatever. But back in 2003, I had a tragedy happen in my life that forever changed it and put me on a whole different trajectory of my life. And I was married to my husband, Woody, of almost 10 years. And he had just started his dream job, went to his doctor and was given an antidepressant for insomnia, off-label, and told him got him 3 weeks worth, told him to take it. It'll take the edge off and help him sleep. I happened to be out of the country the first 3 weeks he was on the drug. I was down in New Zealand on an advertising shoot, and talked to him, but we're also distance. But I came home and I was super excited to see him, and I'll never forget. He walking through our back door, and he was in his blue dress shirt, like sweating through it. He fell down on the floor put his hand like in a fetal position around his head, like, Kim, you gotta help me. I don't know what's happening. My head's outside my body looking in. You gotta help me. And he was just like, I've never seen that in my life. I've been with him for 10 years, or married almost 10 years. And I remember like, what? And so we calmed him down. He was like praying, breathing, yoga, like whatever we could. And eventually he called his doctor and asked, told him what happened. The doctor said, you got to give it 4 to 6 weeks to kick in the drug. So meanwhile, the next week of his life, every night Woody would come home. What do you think about acupuncture? What do you think about hypnosis? I'm going to beat this feeling in my head. Well, I happened to be out of town. Wood and I talked all the time. We both traveled. I hadn't heard from him. And finally and it was crazy, by 9 o'clock at night, Detroit time, I called my dad and I said, do me a favor. Like, I haven't heard from Woody all day. Like, I'm thinking he might have fallen and hit his head or something. Well, next thing, about half hour later, my phone rings and my dad's like screaming, it's bad. And I'm like, what do you mean it's bad? And he's like, Woody's dead. And I'm like, what do you mean Woody's dead? And he's like, Woody's hanging. I'm like, what? literally, this guy who had no history of mental health issues, no depression, no any of that. He wasn't depressed. It made no sense. Like in a minute, my whole life just went. And I remember being sitting in Detroit on a photo shoot. Like I didn't even know how to even comprehend what was going on. But meanwhile, so my dad had called my brother-in-law and sister. They came over to the house, and the coroners called me, and they wanted to know if Woody was on any medication. And I was like I didn't even know the name. I mean, that's how involved, like, you think about how easy this this works. And she said, oh, there's a bottle of Zoloft sitting right on the kitchen counter. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. And she goes, oh, we're going to take it with us. It might have something to do with his death. And so it was like, huh? But like, meanwhile, I mean, my life had just fallen apart. And the other thing that was interesting that day that he was found, the front page of our newspaper had an article that said the UK finds link between antidepressants and suicide in teens. And it was like, and Woody did not leave note. Like like I said, we traveled, so we always left notes for each other. So there was no note, but those were like, in my mind, those were his two notes. The bottle that was left on the kitchen counter
Uh-huh.
and the fact that the newspaper said. And so obviously that had happened that night, but my brother-in-law, who became my biggest ally in our advocacy work out in DC, he went home that night and Googled Zoloft and suicide. And we had no idea that of the things that we didn't know, that the FDA held hearings, advisory committee hearings on Prozac and the link to antidepressants and suicide and violence in 1991. And at that point, every one of those advisory members took money from industry. And at the time, the FDA said, we need you, Eli Lilly, to study suicidality. And meanwhile, the FDA never followed up with them. And we have now GSK that comes out with Paxil and Pfizer that comes out with Zoloft on the market. And it's also approved for kids. And so this happened in August 2003, that my life changed. But almost within, like, intuitively, in the deepest, deepest, deepest part of me, I knew that something was wrong. Like, there's no way Woody, like, we just were booking our trips. Like, Woody loved life. And everybody was like, oh, he was depressed. And I'm like, I'm telling you, there's no possible way. Like, there's no way. And so eventually, like, we started going out to DC, pushing Congress. Eventually, Congress did start investigating. The House started investigating the link between antidepressants and suicide. And in 2004, we got black box warnings put on the drugs for kids. And then in 2006, we got them added to young adults up to age 24. And to this day, it's still not all ages. But through that whole process, it kind of put me on a journey. I also had a big wrongful death, failure to warn lawsuit against Pfizer. And we got documents out from under seal that showed that these guys have known about it. They did nothing about it. The FDA knew about it, and you start looking at this whole behavior. And truthfully, I thought I did my mission, right? Like, we got black box warnings on. I'm done. I'm going back to my old life. I want to, like, nobody really wants to take this on. And what I learned is, no, it wasn't just an isolated incident with antidepressants. It's how our whole drug safety system, how drugs come on market, etc. And so I've stayed involved ever since. I continue to work on these issues, testified before the U.S. Senate on FDA reform issues and how we can make it better. And then today I sit on one of the FDA psychopharmacologic drugs advisory committee as a consumer representative. So I feel like I have this really bizarre kind of background, that's my personal and advertising and marketing. So I get that. I had this personal tragedy and a curious mind that just kept going, deeper and deeper and understanding what happened, and the fact that I think about the FDA knew in 91, did nothing about it. How many lives and are continue to be continue to be impacted. And this still, like, people say, oh, even like I'll hear regular medicine today that'll be like, oh, that doesn't apply to adults. And like, you think now with the pandemic and all the people taken, and the mental health is rising, and prescription rates are rising. And so I think, circling all that back to David Goggins. So it's what I love about David Goggins. Like, life happens, and it's like, are you gonna take it, or are you gonna like look it in the face and like bust through the door? And that's why I just can't stop, because I've seen, because lives have changed. Like, lives are being ruined and destroyed at the power of like the almighty dollar. And I'm all about making money, but not at people's expense. Like, shame on you.
It's
anyways.
no. No, I love it, because I didn't know any of that. Shout out Dr. McCullough. He just said I should have you on. I didn't know any of that. But no, I mean, my thing is, it's good to have someone on whose past is as convoluted as mine. When people are like, so what do you do for a living? I'm like, you got a minute? Like, it's so like, got into medical school out of the University of Georgia in 2013, graduated magna cum laude, kicked the shit out of the MCAT, published toxicology research, got into medical school at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. But I wasn't really happy. I was happy with the idea of having a white coat and being a doctor. Had the girlfriend, was in great shape, and I was like, is this what I really want to do? Realized as soon as I graduated, I was like, this isn't what I want to do. And kind of had this moment of like, I have the whole world in front of me. Like, as my uncle, who was a physician, said, if you're smart enough to be a doctor, you're smart enough to make money doing what you love. So I was all ready for that. And I was like, I got the world in front of me. And then 4 months after I graduated, my older brother committed suicide. He was 27. I was 23.
Wow.
And so that just threw me for a loop. So I kind of stuck my head in the sand and just numbed myself to the feelings, as the brain will do. And I went right back to it, and I kicked the shit out of the PCAT, got in a pharmacy school. And my logic was, I want to research these drugs. And kind of like seeing an explosion in the distance, and then the shockwave hits you. Finally, like 9 months to a year after he died, it finally hit me. And I just started to like nosedive. And I was put on clonazepam for horrible anxiety attacks. I didn't know anything about it, became horribly addicted to it. Went cold turkey on it. My mom's a nurse, so I could, and it was the worst experience of my life. And then like a year after that, was pretty suicidal myself, and realized I needed to move home. So I moved from Georgia to Maryland, back home to my parents' place. No friends. Girlfriend broke up with me. I don't fault her. That was 5 years ago. God bless her. Hope she's doing well. My whole life went down, and so I started seeing a therapist. Started losing. I mean, really, like, almost felt like a car crash victim. Like, truly, I had dissolved like my life structure. Like, I had to learn, like, I was like, every day I have to brush my teeth. Like, I have to put on clean clothes. I mean, it sounds silly, but like, I had just let go of reality. I was like, I need to put clean clothes on every day. I was like, I need to put deodorant on. That's what adults do. And over 5 years, from August 1st, 2016, I started this podcast December 12th, 2019. I was doing Photoshop during that first 3 years, didn't work out. Created this. It's led to me making some money. Finally moved out of my parents' house in April. Now I'm 31. I've lost about half the amount of weight. I enjoy a drink every once in a while, but I don't rely on anything. I don't smoke pot anymore. I don't take pills. But I have this whole thing where I love to talk to people from all walks of life. Navy SEALs, Delta Force pilots, and not just military. I've had on historians. I've had on female powerlifters, painters, armored truck drivers. I always say it like a hipster, but I started listening to Joe Rogan before anyone like knew who he was. Like, before YouTube, he was on something called a Ustream, and it was in 2011. And I was like, I remember my friend sent it to me, and he was like, hey, the Fear Factor guy. And I was like, this is the Fear Factor guy. But he was talking about like doing the right thing and meditating, and how we're just on a little rock in the universe. And I was like, this guy's pretty cool. And it blossomed into Joe Rogan. And then that's kind of been my tactic with this podcast is I just talk to whoever I want to talk to about whatever. Some days I wear a collared shirt, some day I wear a crazy psychedelic hoodie. It's just, it's whatever. But this thing has in the back of my mind, it's always my end goal has always been to talk about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And because I can, and that not in a gatekeeping sense, but as we can always and God bless them, but they're always friends and family that are like, if you need to talk, just let me know. And that's nice and all, but it's also kind of like going up to a troop and saying like, thank you for your service. I mean, it's kind of just,
Yeah,
you're
it's
just going through
friendly.
you're going through the motions. But I found when, I have a friend who's maybe slipping here or there, you can, and much like you can as well, and I'm sure you have, I kind of have the ability to just cut through the horse shit where I'm like, they're like, yeah, if I need someone, I'll reach out. And, you kind of grab them by the collar. You're like, hey, motherfucker, my brother's dead. And me and my brothers have his initials tattooed on our shoulders. And it almost led to my death. I know your parents. We've known each other since high school. I'm not
Yeah.
watching this again. So you and I are talking, right? And they kind of see you. They kind of look you in the eye and they're like, all right. And so it's like I've always known I wanted to use the podcast to sort of elevate mental health, talk about it, hopefully push for some sort of therapy. I personally think that the future of mental health care would be some sort of psychedelic therapeutics, not drop acid, go to Woodstock, but rather in a formal
Right.
setting. I personally think that's what saved my life. I had a realization that I was suicidal while on
Yeah.
mushrooms, but it's also led to just kind of, one thing to another. Never in a million years did I think I'd be doing podcasts about COVID. Like I don't mean to be detached from anyone else, but like, my grandparents, all of them passed before the pandemic. So like I'm fine. I'm healthy. I got COVID. It sucked for a week. I'm kind of detached from it. I personally don't give a shit. It's not a political thing. It's to me, it's a fascinating thing that's happening in my life and I can observe it. But I've interviewed Gerald Posner, author of Pharma, who is all about everything you're talking about. It's like a 20-hour audiobook all about the Sackler family, Purdue, Oxycontin, knowingly suppressing things, and then putting out Suboxone and making money off that, right? It's the 1950s doctors, smoke a Lucky Strike, you're fine. And it's like, we know that they inverted the health pyramid in the 80s because like the big cereal companies like General Mills paid those Harvard nutritionists to flip it because they wanted everyone to be eating more carbohydrates. And now we know it's the opposite. It should be very little carbohydrates and a lot of protein and fats.
Yep.
And we see it again and again and again, right? As early as 2009, or sorry, as recent as 2009, right? The Pfizer, what is it, 3.2 or 2.3 billion dollar payout for knowingly lying about these things. And the Sackler family, who's still paying out because of their ads. You don't need to go back to the 50s. Go back and watch their early 2000s ads. It's a guy who's like, a blue collar guy. He's like, I hurt myself, in the mill. And thank God for Oxycontin because I'm back to work with no side effects either. And then you
Oh,
can watch videos of like that guy and it'll be his wife and she'll be like, he died in 2010 from suicide, going through withdrawals. And I know I'm ranting now, but we both have these convoluted pasts to where now I'm at this point where I read all of that history. I have a love for medicine and pharmacology. I never took the class, but I used to because of how much of a weirdo I am. On Saturdays in college, I didn't drink. I would read out of the psychopharmacology textbook because I loved it so much. But when I see things like Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone, Dr. Fareed, Dr. Hatfill, and they're talking about here are these guys, these world-class physicians who are, and it's not theoretical, they're talking about I'm treating patients with COVID, with ivermectin, with hydroxychloroquine, with azithromycin, vitamin D, zinc, turmeric, quercetin, and they're like, we're having 99% success rates, all generic, off the shelf, been studied for decades, pennies a pill, let's do this thing. And then there's a coordinated campaign across all of big tech saying, no, misinformation, that's horse paste. You got to take this new experimental vaccine. I've had on the inventor of that technology who said it's good for some people, it's not good for others. And when I get shut down for that, I don't get shut down for anything else. I get shut down for that. And people are like, well, what do you think's going on? And they kind of like to gaslight it. What, you think it's a depopulation? No, not at all. We have a depopulation plan. It's called nuclear weapons. No, what this is the story as old as time. It's money. We know what this is. We've seen it with opioids. As you're talking about, It's not just that they refuse to look at it. They've looked at it. They've done internal studies. They know what the costs are. And they're like, why don't you just slip that under the rug? Because, Q3 is coming up and we need some new investors.
Yep.
And so when people go, well, what do you think's happening? You think that there's a coordinated campaign to shut down alternative treatments because that would make the EUA, the Emergency Use Authorization Act, voided, and thus they couldn't be making record-making profits?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah, that
think that
sounds pretty much right.
sounds pretty much par for it doesn't need to be sexy. It's the Illuminati. No, I think it's guys who are making record breaking. Moderna has doubled in market cap during the pandemic.
We're one of the 400 richest that people that came out of the pandemic, right? The COVID. You look at it, and I actually put up a video, and it was Collins, who has now retired or is retiring from NIH, and he's like, he talks about like this isn't a money making for these people. They're not out to make millions. Like it's on my Twitter, and I was like, well, that's interesting because Moderna became like the 400 largest people who became billionaires during this time.
Yeah.
And Pfizer CEO, if I remember correctly, they said we are on pace to make $33.5 billion of revenue in 2021. So for me, I don't know. It seems like money's involved. I don't,
It just
I go back to what
a
my
little
husband,
hunch.
I mean, just maybe. I don't know. Like, I mean, it's not that much. I go back to what my husband used to always tell me, and like Woody took on things all the time in the neighborhood, and like they were putting two cell phone towers in the, two different companies were gonna put towers in our neighborhood, and he was fighting Minneapolis City Council. Like he was really super active. He was recycling before recycling and all that. But he said, if you ever want to get to the bottom of anything, you got to go follow the money. Like
Yeah,
always, you just follow the money trail and you'll always get to
it's the
the
simplest thing.
the simple. It's so simple. And it's funny, like I remember one of the things that Woody was even working on, and I was so kind of like it wasn't my thing back then, but so he learned that schools, the government was paying for schools that had the kids that were labeled ADHD. The more they had, with prescriptions like Medicaid, they paid more monies to schools. And so he was already like looking at that there was an incentive
Yeah.
that if the more prescriptions you or more diagnosis you have, the more monies were coming into the school district. And I was like, and no one gives a crap about, like, no one gives a shit about the kids, right?
Yeah.
And I always say this, like, we are considered like the irony of the whole thing. Like if I look back, and I've met so many people that were just like regular people, like you and I, just living life, whatever, but they're considered acceptable collateral damage. And
Hmm.
in my mind, they are not acceptable collateral damage. These are somebody's kids, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, aunts, like parents. Like these are real people's lives that are just simply tossed away. And so it's for the sake of money.
Yeah.
So when you go back to the COVID, watching this, I was like, so sitting on my committee on the Psychopharm committee. So we are looking at a lot of these drugs, like almost every drug that has now come in before my committee has come into it other like using breakthrough therapy designation, all these fast tracking mechanisms,
Yeah.
which means that there are no drugs currently on the market. So that's why they don't need the double-blinded placebo controlled studies, the two of them, which was considered gold standard, right? So I
Okay.
already knew all of that. And so then I'm watching going, well, I guess if you're going to have EUA, emergency use authorization, it means that you have to have no drug or anything on the market that could help, work this. So it was perfect. So of course you have to like trash,
Yeah.
ivermectin and any of those, because if you do, then if that is available, then you really can't go and try to use this emergency use authorization, which really, as we look at those studies, aren't they're not robust. But and then they're not robust to create like enough to make it a now another one that I always go like, really a one size fits all approach? Like since when has one size medicine ever worked for everybody in the whole wide world? Like our bodies are different. We think, our bodies process things differently, ages process things differently, ethnic backgrounds process,
Mm-hmm.
like just the way our bodies work. Like, there was, so again, I go back to, I never in a million years, kind of like you, I wasn't, I have never taken on vaccines. Most of my stuff has been in the drug safety world, like actually pills, right?
I
And
I just I just re-upped on my tetanus vaccine yesterday.
yeah.
People are like, "You're anti-vaxxer." I'm like, "What? No, I'm not.
Oh.
I got into medical school. I've published research in toxicology. I can find the NIH thing where the co-authored. What are you talking about? Like, I don't like. And
Yeah, but you
sorry
can
to.
watch. No, but you can watch this, right? So I go back to the my experience, and I still go, why do I keep doing this? Because it's like banging my head against a wall. But so in the beginning, people, we were all like trying to get warnings put on drugs, like on antidepressants. I was called a Scientologist. I'm like,
What
what?
the fuck does
Like,
that even mean?
yeah, but you know what it is? It's because the Scientologists have always had a belief, like way back. If you go back and look at the history in '91 and all the hearings, and there were protests and stuff,
Okay.
and so it automatically part of the narrative was if you were against it, you were a Scientologist, and I was like, a Scientologist? Like I couldn't be further from like that. Doesn't even make any sense. Like if we were, my husband would never have taken the drug because he would have
Yeah.
said, "Oh, well, we don't believe in it."
Yeah.
So what I noticed on that, so when after I testified in the U.S. Senate, and it was Ted Kennedy and NZ, Senator NZ were the chairs of the Senate Health Committee, and Obama and Hillary and Orrin Hatch and Dodd, like all these bigwigs were sitting around that table, and I was invited to tell Woody's story, along with some ideas that I had and how we can make the drug safety market better, right? So afterwards, that was, I mean, it was so surreal because Woody liked politics. I hated politics. So I was like, I could kind of feel him sitting right
Yeah.
on my shoulder.
Yeah.
But afterwards, went up to Senator Dodd's office to pick up, collect my briefcase, like all my bags and stuff. And he said, you should know this, but NAMI, the National Alliance for Mentally Ill, which is
Mm-hmm.
an advocacy group, right? The chief lobbyist came by all of the senators' offices that were on that committee with my written statement and said, don't believe a word she's saying. She's a Scientologist. And literally at that moment, my brother-in-law was super pissed. And so he's like, we're going over to our representative who sadly has passed away, Jim Ramstead, kind of a moderate Republican that worked on both sides. He was awesome. And we went over there because he worked with NAMI all the time to do with, like some bill that he
Sure.
had with Senator Franken, whatever his
Yeah.
name,
Yeah. Yeah.
Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. So we go over there, and we said, do you know that this is what they said is I'm a Scientologist? So he called their head of lobby to come into his office, and we got to confront each other about like, why would you lie? Like I'm a Scientologist, but I know what it is. It's all about discrediting, right?
Yeah.
So now fast forward, I'm looking at all the COVID stuff. You even question it. Like in the very beginning I think it was December of last year, I put some kind of post out where I was just like asking all these questions. And do you know how many people called me an anti-vaxxer? I'm like,
Oh,
anti-vaxxer. Like,
they'll cut your throat. They'll cut your
I mean,
throat and drink your blood.
who? Oh, it's ridiculous. And so I'm the furthest thing from being an anti-vaxxer, anti-drug. No, I'm just truth and transparency and, and warnings and stuff. Like, let's have a conversation. And why, like, since when so that's the other thing I've noticed that with this and like antidepressants, but a lot of people don't know that history. But I've been through that to see there's so many parallels. And I look at this and I'm like, you can't even have a conversation because we have different scientists or like, sitting on my FDA committee, I'll be like, why wouldn't you want to have people who have scientists that are people maybe from another country that are seeing something different than us? Like, why wouldn't you want to hear their point of view? And then we have like this debate and conversation, and then we can go, okay, where does
Whittle it down.
yeah, but like we can't even do that. Like it's already decided. Nope, Fauci science. That's it.
It's what It's what the comedian Tim Dillon said. He goes, it's okay to not like answers to things. We'll always argue on answers. He goes, we're quickly approaching a society they're normalizing it to where now you can't ask the questions, and that is the precipice to a dark age. I mean, science is the idea of trust the science is the most antithetical statement to science ever. That's like saying I have faith in God because or like you can't believe in God until you prove he's real. And it's like the whole thing is faith. So with science, trust the science is no is science is an element, right? It's an element that whether you're on Earth or whether you're on Mars or whether you're in a different galaxy, whether it's 2021 or whether it's 8 billion years ago, an element is something that you boil it down, you break it apart, and you go, this is helium. This is what it is. They might have different words for it, but they go, it's got this proton, this neutron. Here's titanium, and it's this and it's that, and that's what science is you break it down. It doesn't matter if you speak the same languages, right? It's like the pyramid was invented on like several different continents. It's because they find a way, like the most stable way to like pile up mass, or the idea of shutting things down. That's not science. We all know that gravity on Earth is 9.81 meters per second squared. So if I pick up, I don't know, this little glass cleaner and I drop it, there we go. It just dropped 9.81 meters per second squared. It's in the textbooks. I learned that, but we could also test it, right? We could take the frames, 60 frames per second on this camera. We could zoom in. We could do the math on it, see how quickly it's following. You could actually see it accelerating. Now, if I start coming out and go, I think it's 10.81 meters per second square. Rightfully so. A lot of people would go, you're a fucking moron. Sure. More power to it. Merry Christmas, David Goggins, right? Just Merry Christmas, right? But you don't suppress it. What you do is you go, hey, let's prove this moron wrong. Here's this video. Yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to slow it down. Here's a time ticker. We can see it moving. It's 1/2 equals 8 RT, whatever the hell the equation is. See it falling. It's 9.81. Hey, Tommy, here's your phone. Drop your phone. We're going to do that. Oh, look at that. It just fell. You break it down. That's science. What you do is you make a fool of me and you show you're an idiot. And then eventually when I keep making these claims, they go, dude, you've been proven wrong so many times. No one comes along and they put a banner on the video and they go, beware, he's talking about 10.81 meters per second squared. They go, oh, that's the gravity guy. No, you break it down. And once in a blue moon, it can't be broken down. And people start going, well, hold on, I think he might be right. And I don't know, like maybe the world is round. Maybe we go around the sun. And what happens? You burn them at the stake. But a decade goes by, a century goes by, 5 centuries go by, and now we look at it and it's like, oh yeah, those are the same morons that burned witches at the stake. Now that doesn't bring doesn't bring the astronomer Bruno back. He was burned at the stake. But we now look back and we go, oh yeah, the Catholic Church was doing that, and they're the idiots with their head in the sand. Or you gotta pray to the rain god and you gotta behead your firstborn child, and now we have crops. And it's like, no, you just needed irrigation, right? And it's just the science breaks it down. That's what science is. So when there's this coordinated effort to trust the science, and even like I've interviewed a guy that walked on the moon. Some people are like, we didn't go to the moon. Well, eventually, just as with all technology, cell phones and planes and phones, eventually, maybe my grandkids or great grandkids, it will be as easy to go to the moon as it will be for me to get an Uber. And you'll be able to go there and go, oh, there's the Apollo rover. There's the flag. There it is. You won't need to hide it and go, no, it happened. You can just go, or maybe it's not there. Who knows? You can go and find the Titanic and go, yeah, it's broken in half. There it is. The truth is, it just is. It's like an element. It's like a nuclear law. It's like the force of gravity on Earth. It's just what it is. And when people start having to paint it and block out the sun with some black paint on the window and go, trust us, it's not raining outside. And you go, can I just look through the window? And they go, no, you're a Nazi. And you're like, what does that even mean? And they're like, you're a Scientologist. And you're like, are you okay?
Yeah.
But it's, I'm making light of it now. But what we're seeing is, let's pull up the data for today. Today is, for future listeners, today is Friday, October 15th. Let us pull up the VAERS data because, we're still at 16,310 deaths as of today. And there is the graph compared to the last 30 years, right?
Yep.
You see that vertical
Yep.
spike.
You didn't make
And
this up. This is from the Bears.
it's not just that many people are dying, it's that many people are dying and a lot of people are making record breaking profits. And not only that, we've seen them do it before. I mean, we all know the big one, right? January 17th, 1961 or 1960, 61, Eisenhower, beware the military industrial complex and unwarranted power, and we know that. But I mean, we
Yep.
can look back to 03, right? We have to go to Iraq. There's weapons of mass destruction. And now we look back at it and we go, all those people dead for nothing.
Right.
Why would it have changed in 18 years? What part of it would it have changed? And when you're in it, you look like a crazy person. You go, guys, I don't think this is right. And they go, you're crazy. So you go, well, here's Dr. Robert Malone. I'll interview him. And they go, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, well, he invented it, but okay. Well, here's this guy, here's that guy, here's this guy. And
Yeah.
finally you reach this point where people do just look at you like you're insane. But we know again and again, this is exactly how this shit happens.
It's a pattern, right? It's a pattern. Like, it's funny. What I found interesting, like in this whole like space too, is all the work that I've done in uncovering it, and I call it selling sickness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole web, and it's their influence. It's really, really deep. But you look at this, and you're like, all of a sudden, so many people that have worked with me on my like who have always been supportive of my work have like all of a sudden flipped it and said, well, that doesn't really make sense, Kim. I mean, this is a pandemic and these guys are like really out. And I go, really? These are people who've always done like advocacy work who now believe that Pfizer's just all of a sudden this amazing company that's all about. I'm like, really? Like, I'm sorry. No, I cannot. Sure, you know what? We are in a pandemic. You can find things. I believe in technology. If you can go find
Yeah.
something, but I mean, all of that is great. Like, right? I mean, that is what science is should be for. But when you start looking at it, and then you also start looking at all of these other things that go around with it, like no immunity, right? Like legal, nobody's really legally responsible. So like if all of a sudden something happens, they have no legal liability, like none, nobody does.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So I'm meeting all of these injured people who are a lot of those people that are in some of the VAERS, and that's only a small percent of the people that actually get reported into VAERS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, it's interesting that our government's now saying, oh, well, that's not a really good system. Well, then you know what? Fix the system. Let's get a system that actually works then. If you guys are saying it's not really great, like that tells me something too. That then, like, I don't know, how do you justify these numbers? But anyways, I look back and go, so that these people, there's no legal recourse. So companies like Olsen Pfizer, who has had paid the most, if you would go Google, just go see what company has paid the most fines, and it's been Pfizer.
Mm-hmm.
So like now, like, but here's an opportunity to bring something, make a lot of money. Nobody, even if there's harms and all the people who may get hurt or die, they're not, they're not going to be held accountable. Then you look at, and I put this in, the fact that we have to incentivize people, like, go, like the first one I think that came out was Krispy Kreme, which
Oh
is
my,
funny
that
because,
if
I
that
mean, like,
wasn't the most dystopian shit.
I was like, wait, we're not talking about health, and I'm
Is
pretty
it
sure that all
is it
that shit.
obesity a comorbidity?
Yeah, totally. I'm like, but let's give everybody a free donut a day if you bring in your card for a year. And oh, you people who've not gotten vaccinated, you can come in once a week. We're not going to totally leave you out. That was the beginning. Then I started watching. I was like, wait. This is what we do for marketing. Like if I've got a client, we're trying to like get consumers to buy our product or to try it. You use all these incentives to try to get it. So like then it was like $100 a day, for a shot. Then it became get your shot, come to the Minnesota Twins game. You can get your shot and come into the game for free. I'm like, I wouldn't like go get a shot at the Twins game. Like that doesn't even make sense. Like it just doesn't make sense. Then it's like if you get a shot, we'll put you into a lottery to possibly win $1 million. Like they were trying all these things that just that in itself, again, that says something.
Spidey sense. The hairs on your neck start going, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not like if it's not, you got to be. And then I don't know if you've watched like the politicization of it. I somebody had sent out this video that was a compilation of all of candidate Biden and Kamala, and
Oh yeah. I'm
all
not
of the,
taking a Trump vaccine.
I'm not taking the Trump vaccine. I want independent research. I need to know what's in it. Like
4 to 6 years. Isn't it ironic? Trump's coming out with his own vaccine just in time for the election. I don't want the fash vax.
totally. And so then now you look at it and you're like, now it's being mandated. Like, what? You don't think you don't think the average person, like, you must think that we are a bunch of idiots. Like, I don't care. Like, my thing is, absolutely, if people want to get vaccinated, absolutely, like, go do what they want, but do not. It is the mandated piece and the insanity of it, and we're not talking about safety, and we're like, and the idea that there's this coordinated global effort, and all of these influencers are all coming out, like, I remember Richard Branson came out and he got a
Yeah.
shot, and he's like, this is safe and effective. I'm like, I'm pretty sure like that word safe and effective means nothing to me anymore, because we have watered it down. Like, everybody is using the word safe and effective.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? Like, we don't even
It's
know.
it's the new reflexive Sig Heil. Safe and effective.
Safe and effective. Don't question. It's safe and effective. I'm like,
Safe and effective. You're like Jesus. Yeah.
everybody's telling you. It's like, I'm not gonna listen to like the celebrities who tell me it's to take it, and then like you think about like Nicki Minaj, whether you like her or not, but like all she did was
Just
tell
question.
her cousin's story about. She just said like my cousin's
Yeah.
friend's wedding fell apart because he got it and his balls, he blew
Yeah.
up or something. And literally, like, all of these people just attacked her. And Fauci sent something saying, we've never seen that. And now I guess there's something where they have seen some of these adverse events. All she did was like ask a question and say, hey, think about it before you go. This is what happened to my cousin. Like, she wasn't trying to, like, say, don't get it. She wasn't saying any of that.
The
She
thing,
just said,
yeah. The thing
stop.
with her, sorry for interrupting. No,
Oh,
the,
yeah, but it's
no,
crazy.
no, 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 no. The thing with her is like, to me, it's not even what she said. My cousin's balls swelled up. I mean, she could have said he grew wings, like whatever. The crux of what she was saying was, and she said this. She goes, I'm not telling y'all what to put in your bodies. I'm just saying I want to do my own research. And people
Yeah.
was like, oh, does this dumb pop star bitch think she's a molecular biologist now? Hey, Nikki, where'd you go to medical school? And it's like, what? When can we not question things? I have a biology degree. I'm not a nutritionist. When I gained weight, you know what I do when I go to Walmart now? I look at the nutrition facts and I go, well, that has 1,000 calories in a box. That's probably not good for me. I should probably stick with broccoli if I want to get rid of my love handles. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a technology expert, but I go, the Sony camera, though more expensive, is in 4K. These sound panels, I don't understand acoustics. I couldn't graph out a sinusoidal wave, but I know if I get some foam paneling around me, my voice doesn't echo. What is wrong with investigating? And it's this whole, you go on the App Store or YouTube and everything is like elevate black female voices. Sure, fuck it, let's go for it. Progress, baby. Nicki Minaj is like, you should research what you put in your body, and they're like, who is this dumb bitch? And it's like, what the fuck?
I know, and she didn't even. I mean, all she did was just question. And so then you start looking at this, that you have major people and like influencers, and I understand. I've worked with the media in advertising, and you start seeing how like even who's funding them. Where, like we're the only country in the world other than New Zealand that gets ad dollars, right? So I've seen that forever. Like,
Pharmacy ad dollars.
yeah, like
Pharmaceutical.
Yep, any pharmaceutical ads. And so, you start looking at that. And I remember a story back in the day where 60 Minutes was ready to do a big story on the antidepressants and suicide. And somehow it got word from all of a sudden out of nowhere. We got a call from, was it Ed? Whoever the main guy for 60 Minutes, the store, they got a call from him saying it's not going to run. Well, apparently somebody from Pfizer who sits on the board of this company said, like, we can't have this in the media. Well, like what? Like that's where all these things start influencing, and like who's like when you see your fact checkers, like who is behind fact checkers? Like you should always again go back to follow the money. Just go and then kind of go,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Like if that, I mean, all it is, I think on everything, maybe this is where I come back to how I just have naturally always thought is just being curious, right?
Yes.
Curious, like curious does not mean you have to agree with something. It doesn't mean you won't go along with it, but it's just being curious enough to say, this doesn't feel right. Or I'm just interested in, like, I always say to doctors, I'm like, think about it like if somebody comes into you and they're telling you they have this side effect or something and you're not necessarily believing it, but just take a step back. Think about it if you're going to try on a dress, like, and they all giggle when I say that, but I say, like imagine you say, I'm going to a fitting room. I never try on a black dress, but be willing to just try it on. Try it on. Like, does it look all right? Does it feel all right?
Yeah.
Can I maybe see it? And if you don't have to buy it,
Yeah.
but you need to be curious enough to at least see what it is. And I feel like we as culture, because if you can't be curious. And sometimes it's not in the answers, it's in the questions that start you
It's
down the
a
path.
10,000%. I mean, Voltaire, I always say it, I always butcher it, but the quote is essentially the sign of an intelligent man or the sign of an intelligent person is he who can entertain a question or entertain an idea without necessarily believing it. I mean, I've had people come on here and do podcasts with me and talk about tarot cards and talk about astrology. Personally, not my cup of tea, but who the hell am I to? I'll go, all right, let's hear it
Yeah.
out. Let's what do you got to say? What do you, and I'll hear it out and maybe. But you know what? At one time, there was a thing called germ theory where someone's like, I got this idea. Like, what if everything that's making us sick is just really small and we can't even see it? People are like, you fucking idiot. And it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, Joseph Lister had the idea of like, what if we dip the surgical utensils in alcohol in between surgeries? Maybe we'll stop having like a 90% death rate. He was laughed out of the United States. Now, I mean, good Lord, can you imagine if you didn't? They used to volunteer at hospitals. They take those things, put them in autoclaves, all like the surgical knives. You burn them at like 200 degrees. You blast them with ethanol and all these antiseptics. But you have to entertain an idea. And, or as Frank Zappa said, a mind is like a parachute. It only works if it's open. But
Yeah.
to what you said about being curious is that's one thing I used to love to do. Well, one, because I'm antisocial, but when I was pre-med in college at UGA, I would never go to lecture. When I say never, I mean I would go to campus like every 4 weeks and I would go take a test.
And
I would
this was
spend
before remote Zoom.
Oh, dude, this is before. This is 2013. I just didn't go because I was like, I studied faster and more effectively at my house, just by myself in my room. I was like, I don't need a professor. I don't need people talking. I don't need to go get on a bus. It's just a waste of time. It's just all about efficiency. And
Yeah.
what I used to love to do though is like, I would, like in organic chemistry, my favorite class in college, I would like read through a page and then I would like take my own notes and I would just try to formulate like my own rules for what seemed like was going on. I'd be like, okay, here's a benzene ring in it. All right, well, it kind of seems like this happens when this happens, and then I'd go to the next. And I'm not kidding; it would take me like a half hour to go through a page. I had the highest grade in my class, literally the highest grade in my class, out of 300 people. But I would go through very slowly. It'd take me like a week to go through a chapter, but I would go through methodically. I would come up with like my own rules as I went on. And
Yeah.
then sure enough, you'd get to the end of the chapter and it would be, it'd be like some scientist and it would be like, here are Dalton's three rules. 99% of the time, they were the ones that I had come up with. So I would try to sort of
Right.
discover these on my own. You'd be like, oh, rule number one, when a benzene ring looks like this and you have that, you go, yeah, I called it Tommy's rule. But I would do this. And to me, like some people might go, that's a huge waste of time. Like you can just go to the end of the chapter, learn the rules. Sure, you can memorize it and spit it back out and get a good grade. To me, it was all about, it wasn't just memorizing and it wasn't just learning. It was what, because at a point, these rules didn't exist. There was a point when some scientist 300 years ago was like, Newton's laws, like, well, I throw this up and it comes back down. There's no textbook to look at. So he was like, what are my eyes and ears telling me? Equal and opposite reactions. You're like, okay, noted, right? So I used to love to go through my books, and when learning, I would sort of come up with my own rules, and I would just be like, Tom, it'd be really informal. It'd be like Tommy's rules. When this fucking thing's over here and you add alcohol to it, you always get this piece of shit, and it's a ketone. And I don't know why it happens, but it happens. And then, you get to the end of the book or the end of the chapter, and it's like, the ketone equation. And you're like, okay, what I have found how that has helped me is now that has greatly developed like the part of my brain for critical thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
when I just see something in the news now, I'm like, what are my eyes and ears telling me? They're
Yeah.
saying safe and effective. The guy who invented it was just banned from LinkedIn. He's
I,
saying we can use generic medication. The big pharma companies are looking at record profits, and the media is on board with them. The same ones that when I was 13 said on the TV that we have to go take out Saddam Hussein or it's the end of the world. And you look at them, and there is no book to go to the end to, but you start to develop your own critical skills and you go, and then you go, guys, I got an idea. What if the generic pills are actually being censored by the big private companies and people go, shut the fuck up, you Nazi? And
yeah.
you go, oh, I think I'm hitting a nerve.
See, that's exactly it. Like, I think this idea of critical thinking skills, right? Healthy skepticism, something doesn't make sense. Like, and you just watch and you hear and you're like, why are they so? And I think this more than ever, and I hope it's an opportunity that it's shining the light on,
Yes.
on what and how the media and how the government and how, big pharma and all that has worked. But, because if you actually ask questions or willing to say, this doesn't make sense. And this is where I said, like, be okay to be wrong, like sometimes
Yeah.
too. Like,
Yeah.
like what if, like I always say, like, I've had people that have called me out and they've pointed something and they're like, you're actually incorrect. I was like, oh, actually,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm fine. I will change it. Like, I will do that because I'm willing to be wrong. And that's the thing that I don't see. Because even like now, when we like what I go back to again where this all kind of learned. I learned this through the antidepressant stuff. You go back and when I look at some of the documents that came out from under seal, there was something from the FDA, and it's literally on their letterhead, and it said, unless there's, and it was to do with Pfizer getting it approved for Zoloft, and it said, and unless there's a significant sea of change of society's view of the regulatory agency. So this was during AIDS crisis where it took too long, right, for drugs. So it's
Mm.
like going through this whole thing. The last line was, we are going to come, the agency is going to come under attack from years down the road for not being as demanding as we ought to be for establishing the efficacy of antidepressant products. Now, this was back in the 90s, this letter, and it took all this time. I'm like, wait, so they still to this day will never admit maybe we did make a wrong decision. So they just keep like, kind of covering it and get new science that's been paid by somebody else to like cover it all up to help them still put it in a good package. And I think now to like what's happening with these vaccines, are we going to ever come back like down the road? Are we going to hear anybody say, maybe we made a mistake? Maybe this wasn't the right thing. Will we ever? But we're not going to because humans, that's kind of one of those human conditions. But it shouldn't be. No, it's hard to admit when we're wrong. And so I think, a lot of this goes back. I'll still bring it back to Goggins because it's like facing things in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
had to. I've had to do a lot of my own soul searching after Woody. You talked about it, like
Mm-hmm.
how, I got to remember to put on my shoes or get good
Mm-hmm.
clothes and deodorant. Mine was, oh my God, I don't even know how to go to Target anymore. Like
Oh yeah.
I had to relearn everything because my life had just, I was no longer, I mean, I was just like in a whole another world. Like I'm not even, that world doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
so during that, I took a lot of like my own, I think from a mental health and all of that, I had to eventually face which was the total truth of like the shit show that has just
Yep.
happened, and not try to run from it and say, I
Yeah.
want my old life.
You can't
I
do
want to
this. You
change.
gotta.
Yeah, you can't blind yourself. You can't take
Goggins
drugs.
pulls off your eyelids.
Yeah, like you have no choice. And the only thing, and I always say, and actually I actually brought it up to my doctor once, and I said, because she was telling me about a lot of like her middle-aged men clients or something, and I said, do you ever just tell them to go? I go, do they ever just go look in the mirror? She goes, what? I go, don't you know the mirror test? And she goes, no, I've never heard the mirror test. I'm like, well, the mirror test is you stand in front of a mirror, and you're not like checking yourself out, going, oh, I look good or I look old or whatever. But you look and you ask yourself a question, because your soul does not lie.
You can't lie to yourself.
You can't lie to yourself. And if you are, like, you start like
You
watching your
know,
body
yeah.
language, because you're trying to like, it's like you're trying to tell yourself that I'm not
You
wrong, or
gotta
like,
do this and it's that
yeah,
and this happens and
yeah. And like if you actually go and be willing to like own it and accept what is, and not fight, I go back and go, I can't fight what happened to me. Like it is like, once I accepted that my life wasn't the dream, like what I wanted and the illusion of it, I had to come back and go, okay, it is here today. Now what? And that became, part of, I even think like some of my advocacy work became part of my healing, right?
hmm
And I also learned that I am a lot stronger than I thought I was
Oh
as a
yeah.
person, and we all have it. So I think, like we all have our circumstances. You've went through, and it seems like in some ways your brother's death triggered a whole other thing that has now led you to here. And it doesn't take away the pain of losing your brother, but you've
It has
learned.
led me to a life
Yeah,
better and I've said this before. It's a horrible catch 22,
it
but the
is.
loss of my brother has led me to a life that the old me, if I had wished for it, I would have said you're high. I
Yeah,
I want you can wake up at noon. You can schedule your guests, go to the gym. You can wear sweatpants and slippers and do a podcast and talk about David Goggins and organic chemistry and
yeah,
fuck Pfizer. Do whatever the hell you want and make money off of it. I would have said that's too much. It's
yeah.
too,
It
but
doesn't exist, right?
it's a bitter pill to swallow because you're like fuck. So I'm living a better life because my brother's dead. And the way I look at it is, it's not like there's nothing to feel guilty about. Instead, it's so the death isn't in vain. You go, yeah, you died, and like, thank you, because now I am living this life where little things like getting banned from YouTube, like, or with my when my Photoshop company doesn't work. Normally, those things would destroy you, but now when someone's like, your podcast sucks, and it's just like, hey man, like I got over my brother's suicide. I'm like, I don't. Merry Christmas. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
You know what? I think that's it. Like, I think you're exactly right in
You
that.
stare into the abyss. Nothing bothers you anymore.
No, and I think when people say, "Well, are you afraid? Like, why are you doing this?" I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing it, but
Well, fuck if
I
I
know why.
care.
'Cause I'm not. You know what? I'm not afraid. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not afraid. Like, you've already taken the worst thing that could have happened to me. Like,
Yeah.
if I die, I'll see him again in my life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I live, and I say this all the time, through, and so I totally get the catch 22. Through the worst painful experience of my life, Woody gave me life.
Yes.
And he gave
Yes.
me life because I love life more than I've ever loved life.
Oh yeah.
I love being able to be and express and go find like things that make you happy, because this time on this earth is very, very short. And I remember Wood always would say, Kim, you don't, he always said this. He would be like, I'll never judge my life based on how much money I make or my career. It's going to be based on my friends, family, and leaving the world a better place.
Yeah.
Always. He would always say that to me. Even when I was younger, like I realized he was such my greatest teacher. And I said, and then of course I'd be like, what you don't want a big house? He'd be like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not saying I don't want it, but I won't judge my life. And so
Yeah.
I learned, and I was like, wow, when you gave me all these other things, like this is what we get in life right here, right? And we get to, and it's probably why when I see like uh, drugs that are trying to, or like the idea of these, the antidepressants that are supposed to like help you and they don't help you, because at the end of the day, you still like it's
It's still
just
inside you.
still you have to find it and deep inside you and dig deep and you know go jump in that open door, is
Yeah. Go open the fucking door. No,
yeah,
but
open the fucking door.
it's true though, right? I mean, in college, I kept a journal in college. I can go back and read it, and you can see the kind of the cracks in the facade where it's like, do I really want to be a doctor? And then it's like you take those thoughts and you put them back in the box. No, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to marry this girl. You're going to go live here. You're going to be Dr. Carrigan. You're going to do that. The idea of like, even the original idea of like, well, maybe I want to go to pharmacy school. It was like, no. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're doing this. What if it doesn't work? Now
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, man, fuck it. Gain a bunch of weight, get addicted to drugs, live above your parents' garage for 5 years in your 30s, have no social life, have no sex life, start a podcast, start screaming at a laptop. And then, yeah. So when someone goes, everyone thinks you're an anti-vaxxer, it's like throwing a BB at a tank. It's just dink. And I'm like, what? Like, did you say so? And it's not like an arrogance. It's just, what if the podcast doesn't work? Man, I've fucking been on my brother's funeral, man. I've held my crying
yeah,
mother. Like, I don't give a fuck.
yeah,
Like, what do you, well,
yeah,
and he didn't die from cancer. He died from a self-inflicted wound. Like, hey, like
yeah.
you got to go. There are a lot of nights where you think about, well, what does it look like when someone uses a gun on themselves? What, that's the person I love, who found him. What happened when the cops are there? It's, oh, he's cremated. Here's a bag of ashes of my brother. Like, huh, if that doesn't kind of record scratch your life and you just go, what are you looking at? Like, nothing sobers you up like that. And
Like
then
100%.
it throws you into this dark pit of despair, and you blame everyone, and you fuck you don't know what it's like to feel this, and blah blah blah. And eventually you get to this point where you're like, hey, I can go down this road forever. No, it's not fair.
Yeah,
Okay, but there's a billions of people in the world who just happened to be living in Poland in September 1939, who just happened to be Jewish in Berlin in 1940. Like, yeah,
yeah,
it sucks. So what are you going to do with it? And what Woody said, and it's what my dad always said to me growing up and still says it, is leave the world better than you found it. So at the very least, that's what when we used to like rent lake houses in the summer, my dad would always say, leave it better than you found it. So we'd have to clean it better than when we first got there. And I always fucking hated that because I was like, why are we doing them a favor? But my logic now is I want to leave the world better than I found it for no other purpose than to leave it better than I found it. It's like the quote, a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they won't sit under. Just do the
yeah.
right thing. So,
Do the right thing.
and like Woody said, there's nothing wrong with having a big house. Hey, I want this podcast to make buku bucks. All right. I want a big fucking house too. Nothing wrong with that. But I also need to do what I feel is the right thing. So although I can do funny episodes with my friends and talk about, drugs and alcohol and hookers and, a dog humping a tree branch or some weird shit, I can also go, here's this physician who's treating people with ivermectin, and I truly believe in my soul that I'm watching big pharma in real time block treatment that could have saved 700,000 lives. Man, if there's a noble thing to do, I don't know what isn't. I mean, here's a hill to die on. It's been gifted to you. And then furthermore, I think, how lucky are we to have a just fight, right? I mean, D-Day must have sucked, but at least you knew you were fighting Nazis who were burning
Yeah,
women and children in camps. At least you knew you were getting ready for the mainland invasion of Japan because they bombed Pearl Harbor. Imagine getting drafted into Korea or Vietnam and being like, why am I here? We have a just fight.
yeah,
Imagine fighting not for free speech, but for, better ad revenue. You'd be like, I guess. But instead, we are handed this just fight. JFK, it's, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Like, don't
yeah,
look at it as like we have to go to the moon. Look at it like we're gonna go to the fucking moon. We don't even know how to get there. Our computing power sucks. We have black and white TVs, and the president's banging Marilyn Monroe. But god damn it, we're gonna go to the moon. And we did it. And there is a greatness in that. So, like, thank Christ we have a good fight. What if I was just doing episodes just to do episodes? Hey, Kim, what do? You do work in advertising. Hey, Tom, we'd both be sitting here drooling.
yeah,
Instead, it's like, fuck big tech. I'm taking the horse medication. We're going to burn it down. And I'm talking to Dr. McCullough on like this and that. And the emails don't work because Google's censoring it. And I'm kicked off YouTube. And it's just like, you know what? I'll take this ride 100 out of 100 times. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore, but I get excited and go on rants.
I know. No, I love it. I love it. I'm the same. Like I feel more, and I want it for people. Like people, just again, it goes back. I think somewhat of mental health too, and like we're stronger, and we're like when you have purpose, like
Yeah.
whatever it is, and like you feel like you're more important. I guess it's like I believe, and I've always believed that we come into this world as creative beings,
Yeah.
and creative beings does not mean artistic. Because I did help start an art project that I worked with abused and neglected kids. But so I always would say this to our volunteers. I'm like, it doesn't mean that I believe that everybody comes in artistic, but I believe everybody comes in this world as a creative being, and that means to have the ability to self-express and be and say what is their truth and what and who they are and discover who they are, and that to me is a creative life. And when people aren't interested or they've just automatically shut down and won't allow people to have and speak their truth, and again it goes back to like questions or like, and then people feel they start shrinking, right? It's
Yeah.
hard, like it's hard to do. It is, I mean, a lot of people say it all the time, like, I don't have the courage. And maybe the difference of having that courage is to what you just said about, yeah, you got to see your brother, right? I had to get that call about Woody. I had to also carry this box that we were throwing out in the middle of Lake Michigan of his ashes. And I'm like
Yeah.
going, I'm holding this box going, this is
We're
like,
going, what the
what
fuck
the?
is happening?
I mean, literally, I remember going, what the fuck? Like,
Like,
I remember my
like,
brother-in-law.
wake up. Like,
Yeah, it was like I felt like it was in a horrible. But when you've had those things, it literally shifts you. Like
yeah,
it throws you into another, and then you start going, I can't shrink. Like I have to. Like I don't want to shrink.
yeah.
And I think and it's funny again going back to Goggins because I just started re-listening to him yesterday again, and it was
So
all
good.
about like not shrinking and being like bigger. Like taking on something and seeing it, and so I feel like I don't know. There's just
What
all of
says
that magic to
I'm
me.
I'm doing the math, man. Have you ever listened to the DJ Akira the Dawn? His name is Akira,
No.
Akira, the
Okay.
Dawn, Don, like a mob boss. He's this British guy who lives in, I think, Texas now. I had him on this. This is episode 591. He was on here in like episode 80, but he's this guy I've been listening to forever. He's created his own genre of music called meaning wave. And he takes like lo-fi beats and he puts people talking over them. So like Jocko Willink or Joe Rogan or Stan Lee or just any like anyone like I'll send you the Goggins when he does.
Yeah.
And I'll send it to, I'll find it right now and send it to you. Where the hell I just put my phone? But he takes all these like the best speeches and he turns them into like songs and he'll create like whole albums. And one of them is Goggins is you'll call, so if it was about me it'd be called Tommy Wave or be Kim Wave. So it's Goggins Wave, and he has this whole thing about him, and that's he does all these songs with them, and one of them is like him beating the pull-up record, and he's
Oh,
like, I started doing the math, man. He was like, it's only like 4 pull-ups like a minute. He goes, when you look at that instead of 4,000 a day, he goes, I'm doing the math, man. He's like, I'm fucking thinking about this shit. And you just hear him talking, and you're like, Goggins is insane. He's like, I
he
just
is.
got to do this. He's,
That's good.
and then but then he also, you can sympathize with him. He's like, I remember the day I decided I was going to lose weight and start running. Ran out. I ran a tenth of a mile. I got shin splints. So I got a chocolate shake and I called my mom crying. And you're like, oh, this guy wasn't always this thing. And he
No,
goes, yeah. And he
that's
was like,
what I think I love about it. Like, and it goes like just when you've had tough stuff, right, in life, and we all have tough stuff. Some it just looks different, but I
I'm
think
texting
about
it. I'm sorry, I'm texting it to you right now.
oh, perfect. I love like when he said, when he talked about, being like he goes in to say, I'm going to be a SEAL, and the guy was like,
Yeah.
what?
There's
You're
only
like,
there's
oh,
only ever been one black guy.
yeah, you're going to be like the black guy, and he goes, you're heavy, you're fat, like you're all this, and I love that. There's something also about that. He put it out there as the vision, and I think with everything that we do in life, like even I have like we all have to have a vision that this is not the way life, this world that right now, this craziness. Like, what is our vision? Like, what,
Yeah.
we always have to hold something bigger. In his head, he saw himself. Like
Yeah.
he saw himself. He didn't shrink. He, you know, and he had. So I like that because I love people. I'm inspired by people who have had things, shitty things, maybe came from shitty. They're not your circumstances.
Yeah.
That we are so much more powerful inside, and we shouldn't like be small and
I
play
just
small.
I just imagine like we're sitting here and it's like Goggins in like a white lab coat. And he's like in his hoarse voice, he's like, so you tell me I could take fucking ivermectin and it's better than this mRNA bullshit? And you're scared to talk about it because you're gonna get banned from YouTube? Listen up, motherfucker. I ran until I was shitting blood. And then you're like, fuck it, we're talking about ivermectin. And it's I just imagine Goggins is next to me, like breathing down my neck. Like,
Yeah.
what if I told him, like, Goggins, I think there's a huge cover up and we might be living through Nuremberg 2.0, but I don't want to get banned from YouTube. I just imagine Goggins' nose flaring and looking at me, and him being like, oh, you know, I'm gonna fuck you to death. And me being like, all right, you know, it's
Oh my God. Well, I always say that when you get, it's
this
so
is
funny we even went down the Goggin path. I have not, that's just so funny. But I always say when you are censored or you've got people that are calling you out on and saying that you're an anti-science, anti-whatever.
you're a Nazi,
You
racist,
know,
anti-Semite. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
like you're a Scientologist. I'm like, somebody told me, and it was my lawyer who I have great respect. You should actually talk to him.
Bring him on.
He took on their firm was the ones that won the first Monsanto against Roundup.
Oh, holy shit. Do you think
Yeah,
he'd
and they
come on my
were
pod? Do you think he'd come on here?
yeah, Michael. Yeah, I bet you
Yeah.
can get Michael in there. Yeah, like they took on Monsanto, and they won that huge lawsuit. And those were my attorneys, and I love them because you know what so they saw the documents, so he can talk about the whole like kind of pattern, whether it is in pharma, food. You know, there's this whole pattern that is just kind of repeating itself, and it's the tentacles and it's the
Mhm.
how you manipulate. And so yeah, I think he's amazing, but he's the one Michael would always say, Kim, well, that means that you're onto something when they start um, when they start actually saying things or calling you out or
When
whatever.
when the insults start, it's because they can't. It's because they can't meet your argument on the battlefield of like academia. Like when they can't meet you with facts and figures is when they're like, "Well, you're a fucking loser," and I'm like, "That may be true. However, ivermectin has been shown to stop in vitro cell replication. You're a white guy," and I'm like, "That's also correct." Hydroxychloroquine. It's just like, well, what do we want to do, man? And again, when you come from like what you went through and what I went through, those things don't work anymore. Now, if it was in college and I was like, let's say this was happening 10 years ago, I'd be like, ivermectin, they'd be like, you're a fucking loser. Well, now it kind of has some peer pressure. You're like, yeah, let's just drop it. We'll go get the vaccine. Let's go to the Twins game. But after you've kind of been through everything, they're like, you're just a disinformation agent. And you're like, that doesn't matter. What's going on here? And they're like, you're killing people. And I'm like, potentially. What's going on? It's just you don't give a shit. And it's just address the problem for what it is. What do these graphs and figures mean? What does this CDC statement mean? What does this mean? Why did the inventor Satoshi Otomura, the inventor or the inventor, discoverer of ivermectin, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2015 for the use of ivermectin in humans? Why did that happen? What does that mean? So it can be used in people. Well, sometimes what does that mean? Why are there 16,000? How come between 1990 and 2020 there was 10,000? There was 8,000 deaths from 1990 to 2020 across 70 different vaccines. 70 vaccines combined over 30 years combined. There's 8,000 vaccine deaths. All tragedy. How come in the 10 months that the COVID vaccine's been out, how come we've seen 16,000 deaths, double the amount in 1/30th the time with 1/70th the number of different shots? What does that mean? You're spreading Shut up. Address what I just asked. What does this spike in the graph mean? Well, Dr. Fauci, shut the fuck up. What does this mean? You're a white supremacist. You can call me whatever you want. You can call me Mussolini. You can call me Britney Spears. What does this graph mean? Why did the inventor of the mRNA vaccine get banned? Why did this happen? And they short circuit, and it's safe and effective. What the fuck? And then that turns you into Goggins, and you go, fuck it, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just gonna beat it to a pulp.
Well, it's just like, have a conversation, like, answer or be willing to, again, just the common sense questions. All you're doing is asking the question, like, I don't know, this says one thing, what, and also
prove me wrong, embarrass me.
Wrong. And you're not, like, again, by attacking you, saying all those things, like, you're like, okay, that's true. I have nothing to do with it. Like, I was born this way. Like, that doesn't make me anything other than I was born a white guy.
Don't even address it. You just say correct.
You know what I mean? It's just like this insanity of the narratives that keep changing. And I'm like, oh my God, but we actually need people who are not afraid to do and risk things and speak the truth. And again, if it's misinformation, then prove me, and we will I'll take it back. Like I said, I've had somebody on something that corrected me, and I was 100% willing to step back because I was actually proven wrong on something, not related to this, but more on my other work. But I'm willing, and I think we need to be willing.
Yeah, like, embarrass me, and I'll get red in the face and be embarrassed and go, fuck, hey, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong, and I'm a moron. But it's that whole idea of, well, this is misinformation and that's the ability of us to get to the truth is by a whole bunch of shit flies around first. Can you imagine if it was noon Eastern on 9/11/2001, and you're in Miami and you're watching the towers burn and the Pentagon's on fire, and you go, you know what? It's a fog of war. I'm getting out of the city. I would imagine the next thing to happen is you're going to attack a city. I'm in a city. Let's get out. Can you imagine if someone went, that's misinformation? Like, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So if I'm wrong about this, I'll be wrong. And the thing I always get to is, like, when I post this stuff online and people will say, you're spreading misinformation, that you're killing people because they're going to. And so I always ask this. I say, is this coming from a personal place? Did you look at one of my posts or one of my podcasts, and did you take my advice? Did you go get ivermectin? Did you have a horrible reaction? And did you get COVID? What happened? And then now you're mad at me because you got duped. Like, did that happen? And they'll 100% of the time, no, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Why did that not happen? Well, because I knew what you were saying was bullshit. Okay, so put a pin in that. You knew what I was saying was bullshit. Why can't everyone else around you also determine what is bullshit? If, Kim, you come on here today and you go, Tommy, the moon is a triangle, I don't go, okay, this is misinformation, I got to stop this. No, I go, well, that kind of sounds like bullshit. Anyway, and everyone listening to this would go, moon's not a triangle, that's bullshit. Yeah. People have reasoning skills. So this whole idea of, did I trick you? Did I trick you into taking ivermectin? No, not me. Why not? Well, I saw through it. What about everyone else? Who are all these people I'm killing? There maybe they don't know. There may be what? Well, maybe they don't know enough. So you, dear leader, are the smart enough gatekeeper for them. You didn't get tricked by my shenanigans. I took your nose. No, you didn't. You didn't get tricked by it. But all these other fucking mouth-breathing retards, you're the gatekeeper for. You're right, because they can't think on their own, right? They don't know what ivermectin. So when you're admitting that they don't know what's right, and you have to curate the flow of information to them, well, once you admit that, which you do passively, you don't have to openly say it, you passively do, and you say, I didn't get tricked, but they probably will. What you are implying is you know what is best. And so why the fuck are we going to stop at vaccines? Should you watch the nightly news every night and let them know what's misinformation about Syria and what's a fact? Do you need to let them know the facts about the Keystone Pipeline? Do you need to let them know about the food pyramid? Should you teach them about the moon landing? Do you got to walk them through everything? Do you have to spoon feed them? And what it is deep down, that is what they think. And you see that that's a microcosm. The macrocosm is this fucking nanny state of you've had a bit too much to think about. All right. You just go home. All right. Stop asking questions. You just take this shot. No, go eat a dick. You fucking communist. That's what this is it's you are passively admitting that no one else is smart enough. You saw through my horse shit. But these people, Tommy, you're swindling them. You're swindling them. If I come up to you and say, hey, there's a monster under the bed, did I scare you? No, I'm not. Now, if there are a bunch of like 2-year-olds in the house and you're going, but you're scaring the shit out of my kids. Okay, yeah, a little different story. I get that. When we're all adults, well, she's not smart enough because she doesn't. Well, are you a molecular biologist? No. I'm a lawyer. But you saw through my ivermectin scam, yeah. But they can't. Well, no. They're not as educated. So you're the let's just get to it. You're the plantation owner. You're the smart guy, and you understand.
I mean, I'm telling you, it's the same.
Sorry,
thing.
I'm getting all
No,
hyped
I
up.
know. I mean, it reminds me of one of the things that I remember just going back, and same it applies to today, but it was in one of my talks at before the FDA on getting warnings. I'm like, don't you decide what information is relevant to people?
Yeah.
Don't you decide, oh, well, this isn't that important. We won't tell them about this little side effect. Give us all the information as to people and assume that we are smart enough to figure out what works for us and what doesn't. But I don't need you. Like, why wouldn't you want to give us all the information?
Yeah.
Don't you decide what I need and what I don't need. It's kind of the same thing. Like, well, you people don't really know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
you
people are not very smart. So we're going to like tell you that, you're going to like just listening to all the like the narratives on this. If you get COVID, it used to be the same as like with AIDS, right? If you got AIDS, HIV, you were going to die. And so it's very much like you get COVID, you're going to die. Like somehow they were so brilliant in the market. And yes, people for sure died. For sure. And so I always say, like, I'm not saying that at all. But just the fact that if you say it, like you get it, it equals death. And I think that has been part of the success in a lot of things. And I think it goes back to the fear of like, maybe it goes back to just the simple thing of we're afraid, like just the average person's afraid of death. Maybe.
Sure.
I don't know.
It's that. And I think, deep down inside, everyone does like a strong leading force, when everyone's arguing and then, me and my brothers were arguing with mom and mom's arguing with us. And then dad comes in and goes, this is what we're doing. And everyone just kind of shuts up. Like you hate it, but at the same time, it's like during wartime. It's like why a wartime president's reelected. There is something deep in our DNA that you do want a strong forward figure. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, it's scary, that's, I would have liked to be a doctor because I would always have a paycheck. I'd be a doctor. I'd be working at a hospital. It's scary doing the podcast. I don't necessarily like being the point man. I would much rather work for Spotify and Spotify give me a paycheck. It's scary being the one out in the front, making my own trail, but it's what it is. And it's the whole idea of you're not smart enough. I mean, that's what it used to be. It used to be priests saying mass in Latin because the layperson was too dumb to talk directly to God. No. Go. Your access to the information and let them choose. I don't need my parents to arrange my wedding. I don't need someone to go, we come from a long line of blacksmiths and that's what you're going to do. I'm free, like an idiot, to go, fuck it, I'm going to go try to start a podcast. And it can be a harrowing experience and with a lot of goggins, but I'm free to do that. And it's, no one has to tell me you shouldn't drink too much alcohol. Every once in a while, you drink a little too much. You end up throwing up in the toilet and wake up with a headache. And you go,
maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
You go, noted. Maybe we should pace ourselves. You go, noted, right? Or I'm going to eat all this ice cream, and then you feel sick, and you go, maybe moderation's good. You can learn. You don't. Again, if you're a 2-year-old, it might be different, but really, it comes down to this whole thing. And I also think it comes down to peer pressure. No one wants to be the crazy guy going, right? Because a lot of people do pull out the card. It's a pandemic. Shut up. I get it. Sure, I get it. But I also know from history that these companies repeatedly have raped the U.S. population of their health and of their wallets. And I just, it's like that meme. you know, one of the weirdest things is how we knew the CIA did evil shit in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. And now we just assume that they don't. It's like, oh, they just stopped. 2020, new year, new me, right? That's the CIA. It's an hey guys, it's us. We're not overturning elections anymore. We're not toppling governments. No more human trafficking or drug trades. New year, new me, baby. No, it's the CIA.
Yeah.
It's the black hand of death. Like, so it's, I don't know. It's we've been rambling our mouths for an hour and a half. I was gonna say let's wrap this one up for now. I would love to have you back on again. That was fucking awesome. I love talking to you. That was great. I'm glad you need to listen to David Goggins. Hold on. Eventually, you're going to act on it. Whether good or bad. It's just Goggins talking about it.
But it's rap. It's too.
Oh yeah, and it's repeating and it's.
Yeah, I can't wait to.
Dude, you need to listen to it. It's incredible. Yeah. I was gonna say we'll wrap up on this note, and it's the last song on that one, and it's Goggins saying that, he goes, "I believe in God." He goes, "I don't know if you do. It doesn't matter. Whatever. You can believe in your own personal God. Doesn't matter who. Whatever." He goes, "I do believe there's a God, and there's a God that knows everything, and the God he has this big list of everything that's gonna happen in your life, and." Everything that could have happened. And when you die, he goes, there's no punishment. You go up, you know, for instance, for me, maybe it would be if I went up there, it'd be like, well, you were a doctor, but you know, if you had really tried, you actually could have been a podcaster. You could have had a huge podcast and done what you love. And you go, oh, and the God knows everything. And Goggins goes, you know, I go to, you know, in one life, maybe I go to heaven. He goes, hey, you're 300 pounds. He goes, you know, if you had really put your mind to it, you maybe could have gone and become a Navy SEAL or something, right? Or maybe you could have done this. Maybe you could have, you know, whatever, broken a push-up record. Goggins goes, I want to get to heaven and I want God to look at me and go, I know everything and I didn't fucking see this.
Yeah.
I want God to look at me and go, best case scenario, I had you losing the weight and becoming a Navy SEAL, but you became a Ranger and then ran ultra marathons. That wasn't on the, and I know everything. I wrote the story. He goes, I want to get to heaven and God go, I didn't write this script. That's cool. To me, and of course it's Goggins, so it's just fuck this, fuck that. But that's I want to get to heaven and I know everything and I didn't fucking see this. He goes, that's what I want. I want God to go, you ran how many miles? That wasn't in the, that's what Goggins, and that's what I want is I look at it and I go, I want to get to heaven or wherever. And I want God to go, yeah, I mean, you did the thing. You decided not to go to medical school and you lost your brother. That was all planned. And you went and did a podcast, but you did this, you know, just golf clap. And then, you know, that's what I want. That's what fucking gets me going.
It's so funny. I have that same thing of like, when I get to the like heaven, I want it to go. I want to see the same person that like the vision of who I should have could have been. I want that person and who I am to be the same. Not it's kind of the same thing of that same right. Yeah. Like, here's who you could have been if you weren't like afraid and you didn't do. Here's like I want it to go. Wait, they're the same person.
Yeah, or it's like
they're the same person.
Or
you
it's like
you did it. You were not afraid. You know, and I think that's such a great like message on life. Yeah. I love the Goggins like it's the same going, wait, I know everything and I didn't see this.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's, you know, you got a 70 on the test. If you studied, you could have got 100. And Goggins is like, no, I'm going up there and I want God to go, there wasn't even a bonus question, but you got 105.
Yeah.
How the fuck? That's what I want.
I love that. I love that as I'm going to think about that today in my.
That's So don't even, not the here's you if you weren't scared and, oh, here are you in the same. No. They go, here's you if you were perfect and weren't scared. And then the actual you is looking down on that person and being like, nah, man, you could have gone further.
Yeah, I love that. Like,
you gotta be Goggins. Break it.
I love that. Like, I love that. So good. I know.
David Goggins. Good. He's the best. Kim Witczak. Kim Witczak. Thank you so much for coming on. That was fucking awesome. I'd love to have you on again. And
great.
Thank you, Dr. McCullough, for putting us in touch. Please, I texted you that Akira the Dawn song. Please put me in touch with that lawyer who took on Monsanto.
Yep,
That
I
would be
absolutely will. Mike and Mom.
that would be really fucking cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story with me. Thank you for letting me talk about mine. It's nice to talk to someone as convoluted and as crazy as myself. It's nice to talk to someone else who knows the insanity. It's like normally I tell this story and people are like, "All right, bud, you know, take a chill pill." I talk to you and you're like, "Fuck yeah!" And I'm like, "Yes."
God, it started. I think it started all with like just mentioning the Gaggans, but I think it is like I love having conversations with interesting people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Like, it's just you know, it's you can't have this conversation with a lot with
No.
everybody, and it's not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Can't have
okay.
this conversation with most people. Can't really have it in public. And, you know,
Yeah,
some people might call cops if you have this conversation with them, you
yeah.
know, but I like it because normally I tell this story and people are a little uneasy, but you just take it and you're like one step further. You're like, yeah, I'm dumping the ashes into the lake. And it's like, fuck, it's Goggins. Just bring it up another level. It's like, fuck yeah. It's, you know, it's
That could actually bring it up another level, like just to like the craziness of it.
all right.
Threw Woody's ashes in the lake. And literally, my brother-in-law, he was the one that like, you know, became my right-hand person going out to
Sure.
DC. We look down, you know, we're in the middle of Lake Michigan. All of a sudden, there's this like red book floating like this right in front of at the edge of the boat. And I go, oh my God, does that say what I think it does? And he goes, yeah. It was a red book in gold letters. It said the Holy Bible, and it floated right by us.
That's fucking beautiful.
I mean, seriously. And every time I'd be going back and forth to DC, and I've been out there like 50 sometimes. Every time I fly over Lake Michigan, and I was like, what the hell? Like, how did that even happen?
That
Like, and so I look at that and go, oh yeah, there's like such a big world that we don't even
it's
understand. I don't need to understand. Like, but I'm like, phew.
my brother John had this pet turtle, like all when we had dogs, we had cats, we had everything, but he had this turtle named Boxer, and it was just this fucking turtle, you know, maybe walked 2 feet in its life, just this big fat whatever, and we just always had it. And it was always just kind of funny because it's just Boxer, and years passed, you know, that was in Georgia. Now we're in we're in Maryland, and it's like 2 years to the day John's anniversary of his death, and we're up in Maryland where there's, I mean, maybe like birds and shit. My mom opens like the door, and on like the like up a couple steps, there's just this fucking like turtle. They had never seen a turtle I've never seen a turtle anywhere but like a pond. And on the front steps on John's anniversary is just this like little turtle. And it's like, how the fuck did you even? And I remember we all just kind of looked at it, and it
And
like
you're like,
wasn't sad, it wasn't happy, it was just like, all right. It was just the game's bigger than I know. It
it's
was
the
like,
game is bigger than we know, and if you
yeah,
actually, it's like that's such a cool
yeah,
story because
you're like,
your brother, like it's bigger than, and kind of
yeah,
playing a joke on you a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, a little kind of like a wink and a
Like,
nudge, like,
a wink, like
yeah, yeah,
I'm still here, guys.
yeah, like
You
I,
just can't see me.
yeah. It's not closure. It's not necessarily happy. It's not necessarily sad, but it's just this little.
Huh?
You're like, all right, you know, like
See, like that
I
little
see
smile
you.
that you got. See the
Little,
little smile, the
yeah.
wink, like, huh? Thanks. Like,
You're
good
like
one.
you're like I get you. I don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
it's
You-
so weird. I
no,
totally get it.
Shit still happens to me. Like on his anniversary, things will still happen where I'll be like, hmm. It's just like a little. You're like, all right.
You're like, yeah, I get it. I mean, oh yeah, we could
It's
do
just,
our next like one. We could do an entire episode on the craziness, like
oh yeah,
the
no, I've got the
all.
stories.
I mean, all of this like advocacy and stuff that we did, like literally, like it would be random things. You know, my brother-in-law and I would be like, who do we need to meet next? We're like, oh, Senator Grassley, and it's because he was investigating something, and literally at the airport at 5 a.m. Eric, my brother-in-law, goes, don't look now, but I think there's Senator Grassley sitting there. I'm like, what? Let's go. And he goes, no, hold on. He goes, let me just go make sure, because I don't even know what he like looked like. So Eric walks over and he's like, Senator Grassley. And so we ended up having a half-hour meeting, just the three of us, with Senator Grassley. So fast forward, and like I'm getting just grilled by Pfizer's attorneys during the legal stuff. And they're like, well, how did you meet Senator Grassley? Because they didn't want to know anything about Woody. They wanted to know who I told everybody who knew what in DC, so they could kind of keep an eye. And he said, "Well, how'd you meet Senator Grassley?" I'm like, "Well, it was 5 a.m. in the morning." Like it was just so, and they're like, like
What?
everything. And I go, and there he was, and they're like, "What?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, like I don't make this shit up." Like,
Yeah. No, we can do a whole episode on like weird occurrences like that. But no, it little shit kind of but it's like think what Alan Watts said about like in the Buddhist sense, like the Godhead, or like
yeah,
what it is it's not peace, it's not happiness. I think they call it like the jester. What it is like
a
it's
little,
God
oh,
it's God looking at you with like a tiny wink and a nudge, just like it's like
totally
being in a haunted house and like seeing like you're scared shitless and like Frankenstein looks at you and just gives you a wink and you're like, oh, it's
friendly.
that's what these like signs are. It's not some like,
Yeah,
sunlight and like a dove flies by. No, it's just like a little thing where it's like
if you pay attention.
hey,
Yeah,
like it's
you
like
pay
a
attention. I
it's like
love
a
that. Like the
yeah,
little,
it's like a fist bump. You're just like, I got you. And you're like, oh, and then yeah, and then and then it's Goggins just screaming, what the fuck, and life's hell. And but then it's just another little like, come on now.
oh
Come
my
on.
God, I love this. Has been like such a great.
Fuck yeah. This has been
Like
wonderful.
I loved it because we were all over the board. It's
That
the way I
that's
love
literally
life.
how I do all of my podcasts
Yeah, and I love life this
yeah,
way.
that's the only way I can, because this is what real conversations are. Real
Yeah,
conversations aren't, well, tell me about your time in the advertising industry. No, fuck that. That will lead me to suicide. That's
yeah,
what will lead me to
totally.
suicide.
That's boring. And
That
it's just a part of my life. It's
yeah,
just
it's yeah, no, it's we're rambling. We'll cut this one off because I'd love to do another one with you.
all
But
right.
thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story, and I'm glad you love David Goggins. I'm actually probably gonna start listening to that album again right now, and I'm just gonna ahead of time. I'm just gonna say you're welcome because you're gonna love it.
Oh yeah, I'm loving it. So I'm already gonna go listen to it. So
Fuck yeah!
awesome.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful
Yeah.
talking to you. I'll text you when it's up, and God bless. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day, and I'll put you in touch with Michael, and let's do it again.
Fuck yeah! Thank you.